listening to the sound of taps. That's a common sound you might hear at a military funeral. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Leah Pizzetti. This is a special edition of A Veteran's Voice here on 23 ABC News. I'm joined right now at a table full of veterans. All of these veterans have seen active combat and all of these veterans have lost someone in active combat. We're here to have an open discussion about Memorial Day, what the holiday means and what they remember on Memorial Day. So I'm first going to introduce our panel. I'm going to start on my right. We have Chris Messick. Chris served in Iraq for what he thought would be 4 months, and then that turned into 16 straight months. He is an Army veteran. Next, we have Charlie Wilson. Charlie served in World War II with the Army Air Corps, and tomorrow is what he says he thinks is his 92nd birthday.
Yeah.
We think?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
92nd birthday tomorrow. To his right is Chad Garcia. Chad is going to be helping me co-moderate this panel. He is an Army veteran who served in Afghanistan, and he hosts a talk show featuring veterans on Kern Radio. So he'll be helping me guide the conversation this evening. Next is Arthur Gentry. Arthur is a Marine who served in the Korean War for 2 years. And then finally we have George Garcia, a combat medic who served in Vietnam with the Army. So I want to thank you all for being here. This is an important conversation, and it's been brought to my attention by you and by others that Memorial Day has almost become a day when we don't have school, we don't have work, we go barbecue, maybe we get the best sales at the store, and that's not what Memorial Day is. So we're going to go back to the basics this evening, and we're going to talk about the roots of Memorial Day. And as I said, you all have served, and all of you have lost someone in combat. And so we're going to be talking about those people, and we're going to be hearing your stories today. So I'm very excited to get this conversation started. I think it's an important one to be talking about tonight. So first we're going to start with just some quick facts about Memorial Day. A look at the history. So in 1966, Congress declared Waterloo, New York the birthplace of Memorial Day. Originally the day was created to honor military lost in the Civil War, but now it's a day to honor anyone who has died in any war while serving the United States. And as I said, at this table we have 5 veterans joining us from 5 different periods. Here are numbers of casualties from their periods. So in World War II, we lost 405,399 Americans. During the Korean War, we lost 36,574 Americans. In Vietnam, 58,220 Americans died. And then in Iraq, 4,411 service members died. In Afghanistan, we lost 2,346 people during the Operation Enduring Freedom. So I want to first just jump into a basic question. I want to open up the floor to all of you, so feel free to jump in if you have anything to say. So right now we have members of the public watching, and I want to know what you want to say to all of them to talk about the importance of Memorial Day.
To me, it's the day means that it's a day to honor all those. You just said a bunch of numbers, but to me, those are all heroes that fought for this country, for our freedoms, and those are the true heroes for me, and that's how we honor those people at these national cemeteries.
Well, George, you pretty much hit it right on the nose, but the way I look at it is a little different. Memorial Day and days like this have been honored, and we say the same things over and over again, but all the things that we put our life on the line for just seems to be dying away. Where is some of the things that we thought should be freedom of speech? It's gone. Whatever is coming after us, and I can't blame you younger people, even though I'm older than dirt, but that's the way I see it. Whatever we did, for whatever reason, seems to be disappearing. So it's melting away.
Do you think that this younger generation of people are forgetting the importance of service, or is it the importance of Memorial Day?
No, the thing I think about that is that the younger people today have no idea of what we did to put our life on the line. Oh, you use the platitudes. Oh, it's for freedom. It's for this. It's for that. But do you realize that your students today in school don't believe in the Holocaust, even though some of you might have seen it, the atrocity that went on there, and that was one of the things that we essentially fought for to try to put a stop to and make things a little bit better. Some of them have no idea, absolutely nothing, who our president is. You ask a couple of these kids, they don't know him. What happened? What happened through all the education and the so-called freedom to select what you want to do in life without anybody telling you what you will do in life?
Well, brother, it's not all of us. Not all of us, and we're raising our kids. A lot of us are raising our kids to definitely honor
all of you. I really am. So I hope you, God, I am.
You know, for me, Memorial Day, it's a tough one because people like to come up, people who've never served and civilians who don't really know much about the holiday, they come up and they say thank you for your service, and you know, for me, it's very difficult, and I'm sure Chris can understand. Every man at this table can understand, because when they come up and they say thank you for your service on Memorial Day, the first thing that goes through my mind are my brothers that were killed.
If I can comment on that, Bakersfield is the area here. I come up from Orange County, and prior to that, I come from New Jersey and New York and whatever. Don't hold it against me. That's where I came from. The people here towards the veterans are very, very friendly. Extremely friendly. They'll come up and say, thank you for your service, and you didn't ask for it. I've had persons stop their car while I was walking into a restaurant, and Jean is over there, was with me at the time, and personally get out of a car to shake my hand.
I think what Chad is getting at is that on Memorial Day, it's a difference.
Yes. It's a difference between Veterans Day. Everybody gets confused between the two. I think, so, and I mean everybody kind of as a blanket statement. There's a lot of people out there who view Memorial Day as like another Veterans Day, and that's perfectly fine. And you'll see it this next week all over social media, people posting memes or pictures for Memorial Day, and it'll say thank you for your service, and they'll tag everybody that they know as a veteran, and that's amazing, and as veterans we appreciate that. However, those of us that have lost somebody, in my case Corporal Ethan Martin, you know, we want to make sure the public's aware of what this holiday truly is. It's about the men and women who have died sacrificing.
I agree totally, and it's also about a friend of mine, high school, very good high school friend of mine, that we graduated together, and he didn't want to get drafted back in the Vietnam War. We were all getting drafted. My number was 29, so I knew I was going. But Arturo, he said, George, let's just join, and he did. And he went to basic, AIT, Advanced Individual Training, got sent to Vietnam. 2 months later, he was gone. And when I went on the honor flight in September, and I was honored to be able to get to the wall. And I went and looked him up, and I found out the information about him. He was 19 years old, 18 or 19 years old, and Arturo, within 2 months, and it said unmarried. And I'm blessed. I have 14 grandkids. I have 6 kids. Wow. I'm going to be 69 in August, and I've lived pretty much a full life. But he's my hero. But my special hero is my dad. And my dad served in the Aleutian Islands when we thought the Japanese during World War II. Yeah. When we thought, and he was a stud.
Well, the Japanese.
This is in San Francisco at the Presidio. Yeah, and my dad served in the Aleutian Islands, and he was a combat medic like me, and I kind of followed in his footsteps unknowingly. I became a combat medic, but he's my hero, and he's interred at Fort Bliss National Cemetery, and that's my heroes, the ones that are in those national cemeteries.
George, that was going to be my next question. As I said, everyone at this table has lost someone. You just said your friend Arturo, who you lost when you first joined. I want to take a moment, and I want everyone to go around. As we said, we're here for those we lost, and I want to hear all of you open up a little bit, if you feel comfortable, and tell us a little bit about that individual or group of people who you choose to remember on Memorial Day. So Chad, would you like to begin?
Yeah, if it's fine. You guys good with that?
Of course it is.
Yeah, August 7th, 2012, we were just doing like a simple recon mission, simple route recon mission, in and out, a couple hours of our time, going back. We were packing up. We were going home in 40 days. So we were already kind of in that mindset. Deployment's somewhat over. We're still pulling missions. Nobody's getting complacent, but the night before, my soldier, Corporal Ethan Martin, he had fallen asleep on duty. So I was kind of heated at him. So we went on the mission, and while on the mission, I walk up to him and I said, "Hey man, when we get back, you're chopping up pallets for firewood." And he was like, "Okay, Sergeant." You know, Ethan wasn't the best soldier. You know, he wasn't. You know, I think every man at this room served with somebody who just wasn't really the best soldier. You know, their heart was there. You know, they loved serving, but they just, for whatever reason, they just were always the guy that needed to give special attention to. You know, he had a heart of gold, and that day we came back from the mission. He's chopping up firewood. We're sitting around smoking and joking, and some Afghan Army guys inside our outpost walk up, which is highly unusual. And we don't have our gear on. We don't have our body armor on. Nobody, I mean, guys have their shirts off. We're in our safe zone inside our outpost. And 3 Afghan Army guys walk up to us and decide to open up, killing Ethan instantly, injuring my entire fire team. My entire fire team was completely out of commission. I mean, I lost my entire fire team that day, either from they were killed or wounded, and Ethan was the one that was KIA. It happened so quick, and when
doesn't it?
Very quick, and when it you know, when everything settled down and the situation was under control, and we're getting ready to do the medevac, I remember walking up and I was like, "Who is this?" I didn't even recognize my friend, because he was my soldier. Technically, I was his team leader, but he was my friend. You know, you bond with these men.
Oh yes.
You're in situations that I think every man at this table has been in, to where whether you're serving under somebody or you're in charge of somebody, they're your brother. I'd gotten very close to Ethan, and you know, I knew what his plans were once he was going to get out the Army, because he, like I said, he had no interest in staying in the Army. But I didn't even recognize him, and you know, that initially was just really hard to kind of grasp right there, because I was like, "Who is this?" And then I realized who it was.
Well, I had the same thing, very similar to that. But
Hey, Charlie, I'm going to pause you for just a second. We're going to get to you in just a moment. I want to make sure that Chad can finish his thought.
I thought he was finished.
So you know, it's not your typical combat loss. I mean, you know, our Afghan Army allies turned on us, and these were guys who were actually Taliban or Haqqani insurgents who had inserted themselves into the Afghan Army specifically to attack us and kill us at our weakest point, because they just couldn't tango with us. I mean they would not stand a chance against us in an average firefight. They knew that. So the way to attack us and injure us and kill us were in methods like that, very cowardice. And you don't train for that. They don't teach you that in infantry school. They don't teach you that in FM 7-8. You're not really prepared for something like that.
So now on Memorial Day, do you think about that, or do you try to not
I think about it almost every day of my life. Definitely Memorial Day. So when somebody walks up and shakes my hand and says, "Thank you for your service," I almost always tell them, "Well, today I'd like to honor Corporal Ethan Martin, my friend, my soldier, my brother." Yeah. That's one. That's just one.
Yep, just one of the thousands of the numbers that I was reading off. Now, George, I know you had mentioned Arturo, your friend. Would you like to share a little bit more about him and that?
Well, Arturo and I, we grew up in the same in El Paso, Texas, and we called it the barrio, which is the ghetto, maybe 5 miles from Juarez, Mexico. And we grew up together, and our moms were the rulers in the family, and they kept us away from the gangs. And that's Arturo there on my, is that my right or my left? And you know, just helped us get along with education and get our high school diplomas. And that picture was when he and I graduated that night. And as you can see, back in 1968, we wore suits when we graduated. we were out all night, and the next day he went and signed up, and he like I said, he was only there for about 2 months. But my real hero is my dad, and I know you got some pictures of him. My dad served in World War II, and he went to basic training at Fort Bliss. That's when they had basic training back then. And then he went to Camp Campbell, Kentucky, for medic training. I went to Fort Sam, Houston, and he took his medic training and went to, he was assigned to the Aleutian Islands, because at the time the U.S. thought that the Japanese were going to come invade us through the Bering Straits, and they actually took over two islands up there. And so my dad was up there and saw it was a battle of the Aleutian Islands. But not a lot of people talk about it because everything was Pearl Harbor. But before Pearl Harbor,
that long stretch of islands that come off
yes,
Alaska.
there was a battle up there. There was the Battle of the Aleutian Islands. So my dad was there, and it didn't last long. And then he got reassigned to the Presidio, which is in San Francisco. And for some reason, and I've been trying to find out why, he went from a combat medic to a military police at the Presidio. And the year before they formed the United Nations, my dad escorted President Roosevelt, FDR, and Truman, Vice President, to meet with 46 nations, countries, and to form the United Nations. And I'm just really proud of my dad. And every chance I get, Memorial Weekend, I'm going to go visit him at the National Cemetery at Fort Bliss.
Are you going to be going this next Monday?
Yeah, we're leaving tomorrow.
Oh, good.
And I'll be spending some time over there.
Happy to hear that. And now, Chris, I'm not sure if we've heard from you yet.
No, not yet. I've been quiet over here for a minute.
That's okay. Would you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about who you remember on Memorial Day?
Yeah, that's fine. Up on the screen. I was a part of a task force that was from the 82nd Airborne. A lot of people recognize the patch. It says AA. Chad knows it pretty well. Stands for All American. That's what AA stands for. And you kind of get a grasp for it when I talk about the people that we lost over there, because they're from all over the United States. That's how it came to be. Everybody called them All American because you had somebody from everywhere going to Fort Bragg. So I went for 4 months. We were supposed to do only 4 months, but it ended up being 16. And we ended up doing pretty good the first, 6 months or so. And then things started happening. And I remember one of the first guys that we lost was Donovan Witham. He was a specialist, and I had just met him a couple weeks prior to this. And I remember we were out standing at the Humvees and talking. He was just a real good guy. And I remember it was the only mission that I missed in Iraq because I was supposed to go to a school. And he ended up getting hit by an IED that night. We did all air insertion, so we got off helicopters. So he ended up getting a truck, and they were bringing resupply back, and a IED went off underneath his car and killed him instantly. And so I remember that night, because we had to help get everything back for those that stayed behind that were supposed to go to the school. And I remember just the feeling of that, of not going on that mission. More than likely, there's nothing I could have done. But it's just, that moment on, I never wanted to go to school again. I was going to stay there with my guys. So, and the eerie part about that was our captain at the time was Captain Foster. When he spoke about Specialist Witham, afterwards, I remember the weirdest thing he said is at the very end is he said, I know you're in heaven, I'll see you soon. Well, 2 weeks after that, Captain Foster got killed. We were doing a mission, and he just got off the helicopter, and we got ambushed. They like using palm trees over there, so they were shooting down. He got shot, and immediately just went down. Captain Foster, he was our CO for a while over there, and again, just one of those guys that, he's a stand-up guy. He would play video games with his troops. We would sit there and link up all of our computers, and he would sit there and play with us all. And he wasn't the captain where you walked into a tent and everybody stood to attention. He would yell at you. He'd come in there and say, "No, knock that off. How you doing?" So, that was one of those. That's the guy he was. And they've started foundations for him. I think it's the Captain Foster Foundation, because he was just a stand-up guy. And then for some reason it went in a weird wave, and I guess things always come in threes. September 8th, 2007, I was clearing a building. We were looking for a high-value target, and one of my guys, Corporal Woodward, 22 years old, he ended up going into a door, and it was barricaded, and the guy on the other side opened fire on him and almost killed him instantly. He fell to the ground, And this is where I will always respect and know that combat medics have the hardest job in the military. Our medic at the time was Doc, we call him Doc.
Yeah,
it was Doc Gray.
That's what they call it.
You know, you can look at this guy, and so we get him cleared, and I take care of the guy in the room, and our medic, he's crying at the same time, and he's doing everything that he possibly can to save him, knowing that he can't. And he's working his heart out, trying to bring him back, doing anything he can. And that was just, watching that, I think that was one of the hardest things, is sitting there watching him. This medic was just trying to do everything he could. So,
George, as a medic, do you have anything, this is going off script here, we weren't going to jump to you, but do you have anything you'd want to say about being in situations like that?
I was in several. Specifically, but there was so many, and there was times where I was assigned to body bags, and so we just processed body bags. But yeah, I attempted to revive several Marines or soldiers, even Navy people, and it's so hard, and you're there, you're getting shot at, and you know, I didn't have an M16. I just had a handgun, and I never used it.
That's how you guys used to roll back then.
Yeah.
Now they have rifles and
M9s. I didn't have an M16, so we just had to, you know,
kept our medics in
do what we could.
They're very well protected.
You know, and I just kept hearing, Doc, I need some morphine, and I mean, you try to give it to the ones that are the mostly injured, the worst, and once you run out, and what do you do? And they keep asking for more morphine, and that was.
And I think one of the situations where medics were tested the most were in the Battle of Chosin Reservoir, where Arthur was in. I mean, I think to be in a situation like that,
Yes.
you know, that had to put a lot of strain on medics, you know.
Arthur, I don't think we've gotten to you yet either.
Oh, okay.
We'll come back to you, Chris, also.
Yeah, well, Memorial Day to me, I have a list here of my company that I was in Korea over the 3-year period with the original and all the replacements. We lost 105 men over the 3-year period. But a lot of that people don't understand or probably hasn't been told. We fought 2 different wars in Korea. The North Koreans come across the 25th of June of 1950, and by September, the end of September, there was no more North Korean army. We had decimated the total North Korean army, and we went on up to North Korea, to the capital, and the Russians were in charge of Korea after the World War II. Roosevelt had divided the country north and south, and the only Russian we saw was Stalin on a billboard, and the North Koreans, like I say. So then we went on up to the Chosin Reservoir, and this was in November of 1950, and we were hit by 140,000 Chinese on November the 27th at 10 o'clock at night when the moon come up. Bugles would sound, and there they come by the thousands, and we were ready for them. And the next night we were really ready for them when we set up our defense. We not only gave them the moonlight, but we had what they call illumination mortar shells that we would fire up in the air, and they're on a parachute, and it would just light them all up out there. You can see it on a documentary made by, that was given The Chosen, and it was on PBS here about 6 months ago. But so when you're in 40 below weather and somebody is wounded, you don't have a med vac or where to take them. They're with you, and as long as we had trucks, we would load them on the trucks. But I have a list here in November of 50 and December of 50. At our company, we were the point going up. We were 35 miles from the Manchurian border. And when somebody would die, it wasn't long before they would freeze completely, and we'd have to form them, break their arm or their leg so they would, 40 below is almost instant freeze. So.
And Arthur, who do you remember on Memorial Day? I know you were telling me you had a friend who I believe you joined with as well.
Yes, Robert Lovemark. I believe his picture was up there. They had a picture of my platoon February the 4th in 1948. We joined the Marine Corps because there was no more wars, and we were going to get one of those bellhop uniforms, they called them. And we were going to be at embassies, and we were going to be pulling all this great duty. And we went to Camp Pendleton after boot camp in San Diego, and for 2 years we trained as war. Sometime we'd go out in the field for 2 or 3 days, and we'd dig one foxhole, and about midnight, orders come over, you're in the wrong place, and we'd move to another location to 2 foxholes that night. And about 2 months before the Korean War broke out, there was a reporter, Walter Winchell was his name, and he said that Easy Company 5th Marines is a bunch of overtrained killers, and they're still training them. And he didn't like the Marine Corps too well because his son was in boot camp in Camp Lejeune, and he died at the rifle range. He stuck his head up, and but going back to Korea.
Your friend, you had a friend who you joined with.
Yes.
Correct. What was his name?
Robert Lovemark, and it was kind of strange because after we joined and about 2 weeks into boot camp, I said, "What did you talk me into this for?" He said, "Well, my mother wouldn't sign to get me a driver's license. He had bought a 9-passenger Buick car with spoke wheels on it." And anyway, so when we got through basic training and went to Camp Pendleton, he had on his resume that he had a typing class. He could type about 5 words a minute or something like that. So he got put in motor pool as a typist.
And you got stuck in the infantry.
And I was in the infantry.
Seems about right.
But coming out of the reservoir, when we loaded aboard ship, they put 5,000 of us aboard the USS Randall and out of Ham Nung. And we also brought 100,000 North Koreans out with us. They were refugees, and they came out, and we brought them down to safety to South Korea. But about the second day aboard that ship going back down to Pusan, I'm going up a flight of stairs to the second deck or wherever, and he's going down and I'm going up, and our eyes fastened on each other, and we come and grabbed each other, and he said, "Oh, I'm sure glad to see you. They told me you got killed," and that was quite a reunion. But I don't have much more to say other than talking about the young people here in Bakersfield. I've been honored to go to Liberty High School, and they do honor the veterans there. They have a social studies teacher, and I've been 2 years in a row, and they go and they come to our table and interview us and want to know about what's happening. And sometime I'll tell them, "Oh, I'm not here to be interviewed, but I'm here to sign you up."
Yeah. I don't know about.
And their eyes are big as saucers.
I don't know about you gentlemen, but to me, Memorial Day I value Memorial Day more than I do Veterans Day. Is that? I mean, do you guys kind of feel the same way?
Absolutely.
I mean, you feel that way, Chris?
I do.
Yeah, but a lot of people think it's when they run cars around the racetrack.
Right.
And that's why we're here. That's why we're here, is to start a dialogue about why Memorial Day.
They think, and Memorial Day was first made a federal holiday in 1971.
Yeah, she did a really good job.
And it was moved to, it was the 30th of May, but they moved it to the last Monday in May, so that there would be a 3-day holiday. And So
it means more than just, you know, tri-tips being on sale at Albertsons, you know what I mean, or as Kohl's having a sale, you know, who's racing, like he said, I think to all of us.
Well, I think that's what people need to understand is it's Memorial Day isn't a 3-day weekend. It's not getting a day off of work. It's not, oh, I get out of school. You know, it's a day to remember why you have that day off. I think everybody at this table, we remember it every single day. I think, like Chad said, there's not a day that goes by that we don't remember what happened. You can't forget that kind of stuff. But on Memorial Day, you want to sit down and you want to tell people it's not about us. It's about the people that didn't come home. You know, be thankful for everything you have. Even if it's driving to the store, even if it is buying that tri-tip, you're buying that tri-tip because somebody gave their life for your rights, for your freedom. You know, this is America where we have everything we have because people have died for it.
Exactly right.
So, and that's what you really want to get the point across is, thank you. Anytime somebody says thank you to me, absolutely. You know, I'm very appreciative, especially in Kern County. You know, Kern County is huge with veteran support. Across the nation, I think Kern County is probably one of the top supporters of vets. Easily. So I'll never, you know, correct somebody and say, oh no, today's Memorial Day, not Veteran Day. You know, I'll still say thank you, but you know, you want to get the point across to people to say, don't remember me, remember the people that were over there, remember the people that didn't come home. When you're, you know, gonna have that beer later, think about the people that aren't here now and why you're able to drink that beer in freedom. That's what Memorial Day should be about.
Yeah,
And
I agree with you.
Chris, did you have a chance? I know you mentioned 3 of your peers who you lost. There was a 4th. Did you want to mention him?
Yeah, there was 4. That's actually probably one of the toughest ones. Sergeant Brian Tutton. He was actually killed on Christmas Day in 2007. He had a 3-year-old daughter and a newborn son. So he went back and was able to see his son one time, and then he came back with us over there. So that kind of breaks my heart. Is his kids every single Christmas. And Christmas, it's a day to be happy and, you know, open presents. But every single Christmas for the rest of their life, that's the day that their dad died. You know, and that's going to be stuck in their heads forever. You know what I mean? His daughter looks exactly like him. Every time I pull him up on Facebook, it's like, man, that's Sergeant Tutton right there. You know, so I mean, yeah, he was in 11 Bravo, where he was infantry, and he was attached to our scout platoon. And probably one of the best guys that I've served with. I mean, he could run 20 miles and smoke all the guys that were, you know, 18 years old, and he was an older guy. And this was his 3rd tour, and, you know, he got killed by a suicide bomber on Christmas Day. And again, there's 3 rules in war, and I think you'll agree, is good men will die, you know, and there's people that Doc can't even save, but to save his brothers, Doc will try to change rule 1 and 2 by dying. You know, that's just how it is. And even on that day, I had a different medic. It was Doc Kleisig. You know, watching this and seeing it, and he can't change anything, but he wasn't giving up. So anytime you see a medic, anytime you shake that person's hand and you buy him a beer if you're at a bar, any bar I've ever been to, any place I've ever been to like that, medics don't ever pay for their drinks because you have the toughest job there is in the military.
I watched
Thank you, Chris, but you know, you mentioned something, 11 Bravo. She doesn't know what that means.
Let's tell everyone.
Those were the grunts.
11 Bravo, that's infantry.
Those were the guys in the front lines.
He's infantry.
With these guys.
He's 0311, right? 0311. So different jobs.
But in the Army, it's 11 Bravo.
You know, different jobs have nomenclatures, or not nomenclatures, but, you know, number specific on what they are.
MOS.
So
it's a MOS.
MOS is, right?
MOS.
Military.
It's military occupational
tank.
specialty.
Yeah, so
Yeah, old good old MOS.
MOS.
That's what we call the MOSs.
19 Delta.
You know, medics, Doc Lario, on that day that Ethan Martin was killed, I watched our medic, Doc Lario, save 3 men's lives all at once. We were helping, you know, I mean, the situation calmed down. You know, we helped him. You know, obviously we're trained on buddy aid, but I watched this man go from soldier to soldier, saving their lives, and just watching medics go to work. You know, we talk about Memorial Day, about the ones that were lost, but, and we should honor them, but, you know, kudos to every medic who served since the Revolutionary War Civil War, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan.
Civil War, why are you pointing at me?
Well,
He's only 92, we think.
Can I do a little shout out?
Yeah.
I brought a gentleman, and his name is Gilbert Martinez, and
Gilbert, you want
Gilbert's a good friend of mine, and he was a POW.
How about Gene? He's a...
Yeah.
Gene, come on. We have some vets in the sidelines. We'll bring him in. Here, step behind him right there.
Gilbert,
Come on
sit
over,
on my
Gene.
lap. I'm a duck.
Come on, Gene.
Get your
Gilbert, get in here,
Gene.
Gilbert.
Gilbert,
Get
a little
in
bit
here.
closer, a little bit closer for
Come
us.
on, Gilbert.
Have a
Get in
seat.
here.
Have a seat on his lap. He's not kidding.
Come on, Gilbert. Come on.
And Gene,
Gene, come around the other
Get in
side.
here,
Gene, why don't you
Gilbert.
come
This
over
is
here?
Gilbert. Tell your story.
Come right here.
Can Gilbert tell his story?
We don't have a microphone on him. It's a little harder.
Can I-
Leave it on. Leave it on.
Oh.
So you can. How about this? We know Gilbert was a prisoner of war.
He was a POW.
Yeah.
And he was captured. You can't hear him at all.
No, the mic's on you.
Pretty tricky.
But he
Go
was
ahead, Gilbert. We'll pump it up.
Talking to the horn.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Talk toward George.
My name is Gilbert Martinez. I'm a Vietnam veteran, 67, 68. I was on patrol in Vietnam on April 1st at 8:23 in the morning when we were ambushed, and I was with a group. We were doing what's called a cloverleaf patrol. You know what a cloverleaf looks like, a flower on the ground. We go in a cloverleaf. On our last cloverleaf part, we got ambushed, and we were shot at. We turned around, returned fire. I was hit in the face, shot through the face, and all I could see is a flash through my face. And the next thing, it was done. The next thing I noticed, I was being drug into a hole, and for 3 days, I was in a hole, being beaten, hit across the nose of my bridge with a rifle. That wasn't the worst thing about it. The worst thing was when I got out of there and I was captured, said to myself, well, if I don't get out of here, I'm going to die. And the B-52s were bombing it, so they left me to die. And when I got out, the first person who found me was my friend, which was a medic. And so I have all the respect in the world for medics.
And you were on a line. You could have been part of Memorial Day.
Yeah, I could have been one of the numbers that we're talking about, why we so much need to respect those who gave the ultimate price. I gave a price, but my price was not the ultimate, you know. Mine was a sacrifice. But then I went to the hospital, and while I was at the hospital, the general came to see me. And he pinned my first Purple Heart on me, which I have 3. And he said, we need you to call your home. Because at that point, they had already went to my mother and told her I was presumed dead and missing in action. So, you know, what are you supposed to do, you know? So they, at that time, they had a system called Telstar. I don't know if you were even around at that time. It was bounced off of a satellite, and you go over and out, over and out. And I talked to my mother, and she just went berserk.
No,
But
we
anyways,
just pick up a phone now and call.
yeah,
It's a lot
you
easier.
know, not like my son did. My son's been 3 tours in Afghanistan,
Back in my day, we was
and it's different. But I have so much respect for all these young men, and I'm glad they got all the accolades they get when they come in. I went to Fort Bliss, Texas, when my son came in and saw him come in, and I was, you know, it made me cry, and I was glad to see him come in and stuff. So I'm just so happy for all the soldiers who made it home and have to deal with their issues, and I'm glad that our government is finally seen to help them and help us.
Which you actually almost bring us to our next topic, which I do want to briefly say hi to Gene while he's standing here. Gene is a Korea vet. And what branch were you, Gene?
Air Force.
Air Force, Korea. So we'll say hi to Gene really quickly, and then I'm going to ask you gentlemen to can take your seats one more time, and we'll get back to our next question, which thank you for that, Gilbert. Thank you so much.
As you can tell, sorry if I'm...
No, go ahead.
As you can tell, and one of the things I love most about hosting Kern Vets at KRN Radio is that what you just witnessed is like therapy to me, because it's hard to talk about these things. It's not especially for the older guys. I think our generation makes it easy. So what you just saw is like a taste
Why
of
are you
why.
looking at me when you say older guys?
That's it, over there.
Okay, so I'm just gonna look up every time the word "old" comes out of my mouth. But I love it because as you know, we're a family, and it doesn't matter what war we fought in. And you just witnessed exactly like why I love doing what I do.
Yeah, and that actually leads to my next question that I have for all of you, and this is going to be an open discussion, so feel free to jump in. But I know a lot of you, when you came home, you were treated different ways. Some were celebrated and others weren't. How was that process of coming home with handling all of that in addition to all of you witnessed friends die? How did you handle that balance?
Well, as you know, it was different for Vietnam veterans. I came in through Travis Air Force Base, and I was pretty proud. And back then, I don't know about now, but we had to wear our Class A's if we were flying home. So I got on a bus and I went to San Francisco International, and I'm sitting there with my duffel bag and my Class A's and all my medals, and proud, proud to be, I served. And my dad, I had just talked to him on the phone, payphone. I don't think there's any more of those anymore either.
You mean you didn't FaceTime?
No, just
no Skype?
No, I had plenty of quarters, and so I'm sitting there, and these 3 hippies come over, and they said, "Did you just come back from home?" I said, "Yeah." One of them spit in my face. So I got up, and I chased one down, and I beat him up, and guess who they arrested?
You.
They arrested me. So I had to call my top sergeant back, because I was going to be stationed at Fort Walters over by Dallas, and I said, "Sarge, I just got arrested for beating up a hippie." And so he made some calls and got me out. Yeah. But got home, took off my uniform, and I didn't want to be a combat medic anymore. So I went to school and I became but I worked for the Bureau of Land Management. I worked on oil and gas leases. I was a manager. And for years until maybe 2014, 2009, I got thyroid cancer from Agent Orange, and then heart disease from Agent Orange. And so I was at the UCLA, and I said, if I survive this, man, every day is going to be the best day of my life. And everything changed, and then the wall changed me too. But and then things have changed for Vietnam veterans. Young people come up to me and they say, "Thank you for your service. Welcome home now." Other vets, young vets like Chris and Chad, they recognize this, and it just feels good. But for years, I didn't even want to tell anybody. I was really, whatever I did.
And how was handling that in addition to dealing with everything you had just seen?
It was, I don't know. I know I had PTSD really bad. And I did go to the VA, but they didn't even know what PTSD. Like my dad, I think they called it, what did they call it?
Shell shock.
Battle fatigue.
Battle fatigue.
I know my dad was taken to a psychiatric hospital in El Paso, but they wasn't diagnosed as PTSD. And so I wasn't diagnosed till later.
I had an interesting getting back home.
Yeah?
Yeah. At least I think it was from my point of view.
Let's hear it, Charlie.
Okay. Can't wait for this one?
Okay. I'm ready for you, Charlie.
Well, back in my day, well, number one, just to show what time, the way it was, the attitude, we didn't do tours. You went in for the duration plus 6 months. That's it. No, So anyway, I was in for my duration plus 6. So I finally get discharged. You get your mustering out pay, $300. They hand you nice. Cold cash, just like that. And I managed to go on home, and I meet the rest of the boys. I was the last one back from the service, from the group that I was with. And the Army, oh, look at that. Yeah, right there.
We just showed everyone the pictures of you.
No, anyway, I mean, I haven't been talking.
Focus, Charlie. Let it go.
Yeah, no, that's not me. But whoever that. Anyway, what else the Army did for you, and this was for everybody. What the Army did for you, you automatically, but you had to sign for it. You automatically got enrolled into what we called the 5220 Club. That was this. The Army gave you $20 a week for 52 weeks, and that was the end of it. Now, can you imagine about 5 guys with $52?
Back then?
You know, back then.
That's a lot of money back then, right?
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, it was about 8 to 10 guys of us, and each one of us got $20, and we. Well, anyway, we had the biggest blast you ever saw.
I could imagine.
Oh my! I mean, with all this free money, what the hell? You know, you're gonna have a couple of beers and that stuff. And the last I heard about that, I think they took me home on a door. But
That's good.
Charlie, let's get back to our focus.
No, that's the focus.
We have a
The
point?
is-
Okay.
The point is that our time of service was quite different. We got reimbursed for certain things. What you did with it, now after that was one shot and it was done. I enrolled. I started to enroll in a school. I wanted to go to school on the GI Bill, which was one of the advantages that they gave us back then. I don't know how it works now.
Same thing.
With same thing where you can adjust that. And
I'm using mine.
Yeah.
so I went to school. Seemed like forever, but it doesn't matter. I went to school. I enrolled and I went to Harvard. And then I ended up to a smaller school back where I lived, when I graduated, and I ended up with my engineering degree, which stood me well. That's another story, but anyway.
Which I think you'd love to tell.
Maybe another discussion.
Another time, over a beer or something like that, I'll tell you what it is. And,
I love this guy.
and how to enjoy life. I mean, all this stuff we're talking about, I've been there. Not maybe as much as some of these guys have been, but I've been there. I've seen that. I've had one guy that I knew, one of my crew got killed, but you know, what can you do?
Charlie, we never got to you.
You never did?
When we were talking about those we lost, and I know you had mentioned it to me earlier today. You had a friend who...
Yeah, he was one of the crew members, and it was just one of those oddbally things. And if I remember, I don't even remember the exact date. It was someplace in July in '44, I think, or the end of July. Of course, the outfit I was with, I just regress a little bit, the outfit I was with was a cargo outfit. We flew C-54s. By the way, those were the planes that were mostly used in the Berlin airlift when they were carrying the cargo over to Berlin, were 54s. They were big, yeah. They had a few 47 Goonie birds in, but most of it was the other one. And so we put down on Guam, and they were still fighting for Guam. They didn't quite have it yet. And typically, one of the things that would happen out there, especially for landing strips, because most of the islands out there, they were fought for mostly for the landing strips more than anything. They didn't need the mountains or that. They wanted the landing strips. And so we put down. They said, "Come on in," but at the edge of the field up there on Guam by Agana, which was the capital. It's Anderson Air Force Base now, but it was called Northfield then. Just on the end was part of the jungle before they had the cliff going on down. And that's where the Japanese were still fighting. They had a couple of, I don't know how many people there, but the gunfire was coming out of the bushes. You know, you can't see what's that. The best thing you can do to protect yourself is dive or duck and get out of the way. Well, one of my crew that got hit was the flight engineer. And he got hit in the place because he came out and he had to do something around under the landing. He had to put pins in it so that the aircraft doesn't collapse, because it was a hydraulic pressure, you know, it'll collapse. So he's out there wide open, and he got hit with a spray of bullets in there.
And Charlie, what you said to me, and I'm sure all of you could say the same, is it could have been you.
Yeah. The width of the wheel is, I'm here and he's about over there where Arthur is. And it was, you can tell whether you're getting sprayed or not. It's just something that, you know, you hear.
How old were you, Charlie? 19, 20? Or?
18.
18. So this other soldier,
he was about a year older. We had a very, very young crew. Our pilot, I think, was 22. Our co-pilot was 21.
I think about that.
And you know, and
but you guys, were you drafted back then?
No, I enlisted.
Okay, but was there a draft?
Oh yes,
yeah,
there was a draft.
Yeah.
Oh yes, oh yes. But anyway, I enlisted in the Air Corps. I didn't want any part of getting into the infantry, because when you get drafted, you go where they need a body. Yeah. You have no choice. But if you enlist, you go where you want to go, and the draft board gets credit for supplying a body, which is what they had tasked us.
It's unfortunately true.
And so I more or less beat that rap, but at least I got my service.
Yeah.
And so this was about the middle, end of July. As I said, I was with a cargo outfit, so a lot of the guys that you would say about there like that, we pulled out. Yeah. As long as they got the airstrip ready for us.
Right.
You know, we would come in, unload our cargo, pick up the wounded, and get them
tough duty.
Further back to where they could get better care. You know, and so that was my whole career for 3 years, just island hopping.
The medevac pilots. The medevac pilots in Iraq now, the guys that fly the Blackhawks that are just for medevac, those guys, they will land anywhere to get somebody out.
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah, but not us. We had to have landing strips. So that's why these guys went and did all the
Well, you guys had to pedal real fast to get the planes going.
This has nothing to do with it, but just a little levity. And here, just to lighten the mood slightly.Id you guys ever see a Goonie bird take off?
No.
How they got the name of a Goonie bird?
No.
They live on Midway Island, I believe. Okay. And they're albatrosses. They got such big wings they can't flap to get off the ground.
Are they like California condors?
Take off like an airplane. They turn around into the wind and start to run and flap, and they start to get airborne.
That's great.
Birds. Wow.
It's just a name they gave.
And now you know.
Charlie, I liked your fun facts that you told me
all the time.
before. Your cargo.
His cargo?
Yeah.
Your cargo. You were telling me that you had various cargo, and the one that was the most sought after.
You want me to say over the air what was the most demanded?
Let's watch our language.
Not demanded, but asked for?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What was it?
Alcohol.
No.
Do we have any more guesses?
I have a good one, but
Go ahead.
Probably something pretty indecent.
No. It's everyday use. It's quite common.
Toilet paper.
Exactly right.
Boom.
See, I had my mind in the gutter. Apparently.
Yeah.
I was going off on something else.
We carry all kinds of cargo, you know, parts, medical supplies, more ammo, almost anything you wanted. But the guys on the ground would always ask, did you bring the toilet paper? I said, yeah. We've got boxes over here, you know. And so I just happened to mention that to
I thought that was interesting.
You know, one of the things I think Chris and I are very fortunate to have experienced is that every time we came home, there were crowds waiting for us. And in those crowds were these men. Not necessarily these particular men, but they were Korean War vets, Vietnam vets, World War II vets. But the largest majority of the men welcoming us home were the Vietnam vets.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've had to battle with is survivor's guilt. You know, as a team leader, having lost your soldier, your friend, that survivor's guilt will eat you alive.
Oh yes, tell me about it.
It'll eat you alive, and it did. And one of the main support that I've had over the course of 5 years, it'll be 5 years this August, is other vets, and it's so comforting to hear their stories. And especially talking to guys in my generation, because we're going through this together. But,
Chad, you gotta get rid of that feeling because it's gonna screw you up.
It's gone.
It's probably easier said than done, though.
I know, but you gotta work on it.
It's gone.
It's gone. It's okay to think about it once in a while, as we do now, and that's what Memorial Day is for your special vet. Arthur's got his, George's got his, I got mine. We all have the same, what we think is possibly the same reasons, but it isn't. It's our own personal reasons. But if you gotta let it go. As hard as I say now, and I know it's Memorial Day, I know all that stuff. You gotta let it go.
It's definitely easier said than done for most people, and it took me a long time.
I had 70 years.
I've been sober from alcohol for 3 years, and for me that was it. And one thing about our generation is that we're able to communicate. We have a group on Facebook called Bakersfield Veterans. If you're on Facebook, well, you're watching this on Facebook and you're a veteran, go check our group out. Chris and I are part of it, and you're going to find a lot of support in that group. Veterans from across the board who go there to laugh, joke, share information, and if you need somebody to lean on, you can find it right there. That's something that these guys didn't have. I
think that's actually a huge deal. Is the younger generations didn't have that. I'm sorry, the older generations didn't have that.
What did you say?
I'm sorry. The more tenured generations didn't have that.
Yeah, that's
you know, you can get on there now. You know, anybody can. Anybody can get on this page.
Is that Chris Merrick? Is that you, Chris?
No, that's you.
But had your name on
These
it.
images
I think
are up.
they made us look the same.
Oh, okay.
I think we're a splitting image.
All right, I'll subscribe to that.
Okay, all right, I'm good with it. I mean, you got that Air Force uniform on, but you know.
Keep going, Chris.
But
Go
anyways,
ahead.
so, you know, now on Facebook, you know, or this veterans group, you know, if somebody gets on there and says, hey, you know, I lost my job, I got laid off, you'll see every single person get in there and they come together and we'll get your mortgage paid. Or, hey, I need, you know, clothes for my kid. There you go, we'll get that. You know, a lot of the guys with Vietnam, you know, they didn't broadcast that they were veterans. It wasn't something that they said because they were feared of backlash from it. You know, we've had a lot of support. You know, I've had a lot of support since I came back. And like right now, I know if I need something, I can get on that group and say, hey, this is what I need. I need to take care of this. And you'll have guys jumping. You'll have to tell people, no, I can't have your help because I already have this 300 other people that are going to help me.
That's amazing.
So, and it just keeps getting better and better.
But it's all attitude. And as somebody here,
Jason Dice, the Christian group that you went through.
Yeah,
The Warriors.
so there's so many different programs right now for veterans who are going through, you know, any kind of issue regarding the loss or something they experienced or a loss of a brother or sister. Mighty Oaks was a program I went to that completely changed my perspective on, you know, how I was going about having PTS. You'll never hear me say I have PTSD. You know, I have PTS growth, right? You know, I'm no longer going to allow my past experiences to define me, because everything this man just said took me 5 years to realize. There's guys out there who have probably served in Korea or Vietnam who haven't realized that. You know, I went to a program, Mighty Oaks Warrior Program, and it helped me realize that. There are so many programs out there for veterans, you just got to know where to look, and the first step is to just reach out.
Yeah.
but Chad, remember just one thing. I hate to bring this up, but I can't hide it. I had 70 years to practice that, okay? You only had 5. Give it a chance.
Yeah.
It'll work.
It's working.
And
I know.
I want to let you guys know we each have a couple minutes left,
Yeah.
but we were just talking about the survivor's guilt, but then also our purpose that we're here today is Memorial Day and remembering. And I'm curious if you have any insight on the balance between survivor's guilt, and I don't know if remembering your friends and your peers who you lost makes you feel that guilt, or where do you find that
That'd be a
line?
good question for Arthur here.
Arthur, you want to take a stab at that one?
On what was that now?
So is there a balance? Do you find that there's a balance between, you know, getting over maybe survivor's guilt, maybe a veteran's out there feeling guilty, you know?
Well, I've been.
Where's that balance?
I have this hat. It's Korea 50 to 53, and we formed a Easy Company organization 35 years ago, and I found it through the VFW magazine, and we got together every year. Last year was our last year because we only had 15 there of a company that was 220 to begin with, then replacements over the 3 years. But we'd get together every year and we'd have a memorial service and read off the names.
So there you
and
go.
talk about, we all weren't there at the same time, but we'd share different things that happened. And it was kind of a good feeling to get there and talk to, you know. And the last one,
That's also to see how they're doing and what's
Right.
coming up.
So
in fact, yesterday I talked to 5 of my Marine buddies, one in Napa that I was served with in 48 to 51, and one in Florida and one in Missouri, and we're still in contact with one another.
So that's, you know, it's being social, and for them, they're basically describing what social media is to them. You know, like we have social media, that finding a group, finding other veterans to lean on, that's the key. That's the key to making it through, you know, the tough memories of what Memorial Day might bring, and that's what I'd recommend.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I'm gonna wrap us up. I want to thank you all for being here. Once again, we have a vet from every era. We have. You want to put your hats on? There you go.
Can we put our hats on?
Sure, go for it. We have World War II, we have Korea, we have Vietnam, we have Iraq, we have Afghanistan sitting at this table. All of you served active combat. All of you lost friends in active combat. And so Memorial Day is coming up, and we want to make sure to remind everyone to remember those who were lost and remember why we celebrate Memorial Day. I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for tuning in if you're watching right now. And thank you for your service as usual.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, gentlemen.